So we have 100 people here. I guess, yeah, people keep joining in. So just wait a few seconds. I still see, okay, still see more numbers. It seems no more come in. Welcome everyone to this breakout room. I'm going to introduce our speaker, Laura Kennett. I won't speak too much to occupy Laura's time because we already lose some time. I will say more time for Laura for her wonderful speech and the Q&A at the end. Take it away, Laura.
All right, thank you so much, Bing. I have a little bit of an echo. There we go. Usually the sound system clears itself as after a moment after it clears its throat. So hi, everyone. Not going to spend a lot of time on introduction. You have my bio, so you can read that. I just want to jump right in. But first of all, I want to say I am so honored to be here to speak with you today. I am speaking from Edmonton, which is on Treaty 6 territory. I was also born and raised on a dairy farm near Barrhead, Alberta, which is also in Treaty 6 territory. So this is really my home. And what an awesome opportunity to be virtually surrounded by so many great people. This is just an awesome conference. So I want to start off with a little bit of an exercise, and I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to see all of you. So I'm going to do my stop share. So get ready with your reaction button to put up your hand or to any kind of reaction. But I'm going to say 4 statements, and I'd like you to react if you've heard these statements. So the first is, she's a bull in a china shop. She lacks confidence. She's pushy. She's too quiet. And my screen is just flashing because I think almost everybody's hands are up. And, you know, the unfortunate thing is women are often the victims of very quick and biased judgments like this. I don't have statistics that tell me this. I've observed this. I have lived this. Now I want to go back to my screen share. Give me a moment. I'm running 3 screens, so this is quite entertaining for me. All right. So on the spectrum between being labeled as being a coward or courageous or cocky, it's much less likely that women will be labeled courageous compared to men. And I'm going to have fun today because I've got these labels here. Not courageous. I'm going to label myself as a coward right now. So all these labels are not endearing. They are important for us to notice because they indicate something about how others relate to us. And this spectrum reveals a lot about a social game we are in. And if you came to this session for an uplifting talk, or you came to learn a recipe for success, I'm sorry, you're going to be disappointed. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. We all live in a cruel, unfair game of gender differences, and they're very entrenched in our culture, and they're horrendously challenging to overcome. And I'm going to talk about learning to lean in to improve your chances of survival in this game that we're immersed in. But I'm also going to talk about leaning out to see that a game exists and how women become unknowingly trapped in it. So one of my favorite movies was the 1999 sci-fi called The Matrix. And for those who have not watched it, I highly recommend you stream it tonight. But here's a synopsis to baseline everyone's understanding. So in The Matrix, the main character, Neo, who's in the center of the picture here, he is offered a choice. He's offered a red pill and a blue pill. I actually, you're gonna laugh, I actually dug into my medicine cabinet of very expired stuff and found a red pill, and I found a blue pill. So he's offered a red pill and a blue pill from a rebel leader. The red pill represents an uncertain future, a real world that is harsh and more difficult. The blue pill represents a beautiful machine-generated dream world in which Neil could live a life of ignorance, living in confined comfort, without want or fear, within a simulated reality called the Matrix. So I'm going to give you a choice today. Do you want the red pill or the blue pill? And I'd like you to type your answer into the chat. Let's see who wants the red pill or the blue pill today. All right, I'm seeing a dominant of red peppered with, oh, some purple. That's nice. Maybe a little red, maybe a little purple, maybe a little blue. Quite a mix. Well, today I'm going to give you the blue pill and I'm going to give you the red pill, because I not only want to talk about a blissfully ignorant way for us to live in this gender game, I want to give you full awareness of the polarized and less courteous world that created this social game that holds it firmly in place. Not to make you seasick, but I am going to turn my slides off every once in a while. Great comments here. Red pill wrapped in cheese, made from a blue pill. I like that one. So first, I have to declare that I realize I may break some of the expectations that the Women in Engineering Summit Organization Committee had of me today, because I actually started off with a very uplifting presentation about how to earn the label of courage. But then I realized I would be wasting your time, because there is already a tremendous number of self-help books, videos, and TED Talks out there. And actually, I should mention, I'm reading a really good book right now called Women and Leadership, Real Lives, Real Lessons by Julia Gillard and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And Julia Gillard was actually the former Prime Minister of Australia, and they interview leaders, women leaders from all around the world. So I recommend it. But I wanted to tell you, I practiced my presentation with some colleagues last week, and they said, Laura, your presentation is too polite. Cut to the crap and give them the truth. So I chucked my presentation on Tuesday and I rewrote it. I would feel guilty to my fellow women engineers if I didn't give you the raw reality. So I'm going to practice courage here today. I anticipate I might get some blowback with this presentation, but what do I have to lose? I could lose my reputation, which helps me play this social game, or the satisfaction that I'm being more helpful to you. So I'm going to talk about what courage really is and is not. I'm going to give advice on how to play this game, which is really about increasing your chances of being labeled as courageous. And I'm going to talk about why it's important that we play this thinking game while simultaneously putting in our contribution to dismantle this game. All right, back to my slides. Let me get my screen share. All right. So I'm going to take you on a journey that's going to range from facial expressions to existential calamity. So again, I have a question, and you can type it in the chat. What do you want to hear about? Facial expressions or existential calamity? That's if you're typing existential calamity, it's okay if you spell it wrong, but have fun with it. Oh, most people love the danger, the calamity. Well, we're gonna go on a journey. So first, I'm gonna begin. Oh, these comments are hilarious. First, I'm going to begin with the definition of courage. And I chose one from the Collins English Dictionary. So, courage, noun. The attitude of facing and dealing with anything recognized as dangerous, painful, instead of withdrawing from it. I want to pause for a moment and explain the words dangerous or painful. Now, we often think of these as physical dangers, but social dangers can create mental anguish that can be equally, if not more hazardous to your health and well-being. So for the sake of my presentation today, whenever I say danger or pain, please also consider the social and emotional hazards, like being excluded from a group or by being ignored by a boss. So in this definition, I want to highlight two items that make it harder for women to be labeled as courageous and play in this social game. So I'm going to highlight attitude and recognized as. So first, starting with attitude. So courage does require some expression of attitude or emotion. So if you're a person who naturally does not show much attitude, either through your facial expressions or your voice or your gestures, then your attitude may be less perceptible to others. And let's consider that for a moment. Why is that, especially for women? Well, women typically have a smaller face, a smaller body, less robust vocal cords, and their hair, it's often hiding parts of their face. And so our attitudes just become less perceptible. And it doesn't mean we don't have an attitude, but these biological and cultural factors make it less likely for our attitudes to be noticed. But it's also in our social programming to play down or ignore attitudes that we don't like or that we don't expect to come from women. Women have learned to hide attitude because it protects us from backlash when we break some sort of gender norm. And a woman who shows her emotions with her face revealed and her hair pulled back is more quickly is more likely to be labeled as emotional or unstable. And so when you hear people saying she's emotionally unstable, that's a sign of the rules of the social game. These rules are revealing themselves. Like, for example, if a man cries, he's considered brave, but a woman cries and is considered weak. So hold that thought. The other phrase I wanted to mention was recognized as. This means there is judging that is happening. This game isn't actually about having real courage. It's about others thinking you have courage. And along with all that judging, others are also judging you against a pile of gender norms, such as how professional a woman should look and how she should behave and how she should conduct herself at a meeting, or how she should button up her coveralls, or how she should speak, or how she should style her hair, and even that she should choose the back seat of the crew work truck. So men are often socialized from birth to do activities that are more dangerous or painful compared to the activities that women were socialized to do. And even though men's and women's judgments about courage are often different, we are both biased by how we expect women to behave. So when women work in male-dominated disciplines, such as working in an industrial construction site, it may require a woman to be more courageous, but that may not be deemed as courageous by the men. It in fact may even seem cocky to both men and women, because a male-dominated field is not where we've been socialized to expect a woman to be. I spent many days working on industrial construction sites in the oil sands, where I had to tuck my hair under my collar of my coveralls because I was tired of being distracting to the male workers. It didn't matter if I was pretty or if I was ugly. The fact was I was a woman in a place where women were not expected to be, and this caused heads to turn. So in this picture, we can see a woman riding a motorcycle. Now, a man riding a motorcycle like this looks normal to most of us, but a woman riding confidently looks outwardly dangerous, careless, or plain stupid. That woman must be cocky. So I got my cocky label on. I'm going to stop my slide share for a moment so I can see your wonderful faces. So it is really hard for a woman to be crowned that coveted label of courageous because of these gender expectations and how they've been socialized into us since birth. And I've talked about what courage is, but maybe it's more helpful to talk about what courage is not. First of all, courage is not doing something that you are not afraid to do. So let me give you an example about that from my own life, but I'm going to turn on my screen share again because I have a lovely, cute picture for you. All right, so here's a little girl walking on stilts. Not me, but it's cute, and I couldn't find one from my childhood. But I'm not afraid to walk on stilts. Yeah, it's a quirky activity, but I did it a lot when I was a kid. I went everywhere on the farm on my stilts. And if I were to walk on stilts today, that should not be considered courageous for me. But if you are someone who has never walked on stilts and who is afraid of heights, and you attempt to do it for the first time, you should be considered courageous. The problem is, because I don't think that walking on stilts is a big deal, I may not give you credit for being courageous if you attempted this in the face of your own fear. That doesn't sound fair, does it? So not only is everyone judging you and labeling you based on their socialization since birth, they're also biased by their experiences. So if you're the first woman to become the CEO of a company, you're often considered courageous. Here, I got another courageous label. So you're often considered courageous. You broke the glass ceiling. But if you're the second woman to achieve that same feat, even though you may have had to go through the same hurdles or go through the same amount of hardship, you're less likely to be considered courageous by others. And again, that seems unfair. It is all unfair. Why does the first woman have to go through so much hardship and receive so much questioning to do the job just because she's a woman? She broke the social norms. And why does the second, the third, and more women not get to be called courageous? Because people think that just because the first woman did it, it shouldn't be as scary for the others, or that the first woman somehow magically changed hundreds of years of socialization, and the other women don't have to face patriarchy and economic inequality or a lack of respect because they're caring for children and elders while pursuing this career in a male-dominated field. Now I'm ranting, as you can tell. Oh, hold on. Let me grab a glass of water. So on top of all this not so great news that I'm giving you, we also have egos. So it's a popular belief, perhaps a myth, I'm not sure, that women can hold other women back. And I don't know, I mean, I'm not a social scientist, but I don't think it's really about women holding women back. I think it's really about our egos. I think it's people with unconstrained egos holding people back. So if I became the first person to go to Mars, and as a kid, I always wanted to be an astronaut. So if I was the first to go to Mars, and if I was particularly proud of that accomplishment, and I didn't want to share that prestige with anybody else, then I may not consider the second person to go to Mars to be courageous. I may even make statements that undermine anyone from considering that second person to be as courageous as I was. So as you can see, courage is relative. It depends on our socialization from birth, our unique experiences, and our egos. So if for a moment we could ignore that all of this is a judgment, the definition of courage might look something like this. So you can see my text editing. So from Laura's Made Up Dictionary, in this one, if you have overcome your fear to achieve something that is potentially dangerous or painful for you, that would be courage. But again, we're still immersed in this silly social game of judging. So let's shift gears and talk about how we can improve the likelihood that others will more accurately deem you as courageous. And I mentioned you need to show a little bit of attitude or expression. So start by not hiding your expression. Let your expressions be seen. Humans are social creatures, and we are incredibly adept at looking for little clues in facial expressions. And if we can't see expressions, we start to draw conclusions. And so presenting at a virtual summit here today is very uncomfortable because except for awesome Andrea right now on my little screen, I can't see faces. And of course, that's incredibly discomforting because humans are tuned to looking at faces. So getting credit in this social game of for having courage begins with others seeing your expression. And it requires the expression of 3 feelings in a specific sequence while you actually overcome whatever or danger or pain is threatening you. And if this all sounds like a dance that I'm teaching you, yeah, I kind of am going to teach you a dance, but not this dance. So let's say you, if I was visibly dancing an Irish jig, and then I'm more likely to understand what an Irish jig is. So let's say I'm watching somebody else dance an Irish jig. So let's pick the person on the left-hand side of the screen here. And so if I know what an Irish jig is and I'm watching them dance an Irish jig, then I'm probably more accurately going to guess that that's an Irish jig. But if you're wearing a really bulky dress, or if I simply don't know what an Irish jig looks like, or maybe I have a big ego and I think my Irish jigging is far superior to anyone else's, then I might not accurately guess or acknowledge that you are dancing an Irish jig. Wow, isn't that unfair if you are a good Irish dancer and you can't get credit for it? That's kind of like what women experience when we're trying to get credit for courage. So these are the ingredients for courage. And there's actually 5 listed on here. And I'm going to talk specifically about what these 5 are. And a presentation at a summit full of engineers wouldn't be complete without some mathematical formulas. So let's get into the math and break this down. So first of all, fear or anxiety. If this is the only expression you show, yep, you're probably going to be labeled a coward. Here's my coward label. So yep, that's probably what you're going to get. So really, it means you're showing fear, but you haven't done anything about it. So now let's look at adding in another expression. So what if you show fear or anxiety, but you show determination that darn right, I'm going to do it. But if that's all you show, but you actually don't do anything about it, you could be labeled as coward or labeled as cocky. Could go either way. Let's add in another here. Let's say that you just went out and did something and you're like, yeah, I did that, right? that kind of sounds like cocky. Like no one saw you actually being scared of this thing, and no one actually saw any determination that you're gonna conquer this thing. So, wow, you must be cocky. Oh, and I should just add in a little side story here from my personal life where I've been labeled as cocky. I was once leading a crew on a site, and I was so proud of myself for getting to finally lead this particular crew on a site. And there was an incident, and during the investigation, they questioned me to say, was I qualified? And I was so cocky about it. So of course I was. And that was a big mistake because I just came across to them as cocky. I didn't actually show them how much work I had done to get to that level, to that position, and show them my humility that it was a tough job to do. So I've been labeled cocky as well. But let's put these ingredients together, and there's a fifth one and a fourth one I didn't tell you about. So again, back to that, showing your fear, and then showing your determination that you're going to get over it, and then actually doing this thing that actually makes you scared, and then showing afterward that you're so proud of yourself and you're so grateful to the other people who helped you do it. But then most importantly, recognizing that there is judgment that's happening. And so the little eyes in the corner of the room, there's judgment that's happening. There's someone watching you. So you have to show your full intention to overcome your fears, and you have to follow through. And throughout your career and your life, you have to keep doing that because that's how you build a reputation as someone who can reliably overcome fear of really uncomfortable and high stress situations time and time again. All right, I'm going to switch gears here. So to play this social game we're in, this matrix, we've learned some techniques to improve the likelihood that others will judge us as courageous. We've learned some tricks. We also recognize that there's more biases stacked against women, and women have to practice a lot more to find that sweet spot on the cowardice, courage, and cockiness spectrum. And admittedly, sometimes women practice this so much they lose awareness that they're playing a game. And I've fallen into that trap. I fell into it last week, again, as I was practicing my presentation with my colleagues. And they brought the awareness back and said that I'd forgotten I was in the matrix. I was going to come and only give you the recipe and how to play this game. And I wasn't going to talk about the game and why it exists in the first place. So you may have heard the saying that culture is like the air around us. You know, we usually don't notice it and we don't pay attention to it until there's something about it that makes it hard for us to breathe. And I've learned how to breathe smoke and soot. And that's not something that I'm particularly proud of. I should be questioning, why is the air the way it is in the first place? And so as someone who's been immersed in a male-dominated field, especially fields like industrial construction, engineering, metallurgical manufacturing for more than half my career, I'm more at risk at becoming complacent and even complicit to this game. So if you read my bio and you thought I was successful, I mean, yes, you could say that I'm a successful player of our social game, but this success is only a veneer. And thinking that winning the game is success is a silly delusion. Real success requires dismantling the social structure that keeps this game firmly in place. And these structures took thousands of years to construct, and they're hardened. And those who know how to win this game those who know how to win in this current game are also the ones who are more reluctant to abandon it. And yeah, there's great progress happening, and kudos to the 30 by 30 initiative. But no one has been successful at completely dismantling these structures that keep this gender balance in place. It is possible, but don't expect it to be easy, and don't expect it to be fast. So I'm going to go back to a new definition I created. So again, from Laura's made up dictionary, I've made up a new word. As I was writing this presentation, it made me think of what is a more meaningful word than just courage. And I call it polycourage. It's defined as the ability to face and deal with a large variety of situations that are recognized as dangerous or painful to you instead of withdrawing from them. Because it's the people who can keep putting themselves into potentially dangerous or painful physical or social situations, who can overcome their fears through these achievements. They are the types of leaders that we gravitate to. And these types of leaders earn our trust and respect because they repeatedly and reliably demonstrate courage and capability. I'm going to grab my courageous sticker again because it makes me feel good. So here's the problem though. If courage and capability earns you informal leadership, but if women are less likely to be labeled as courageous within this patriarchal game, then women are less likely to be considered leaders. And it's interesting to ponder why male leadership became dominant in our culture in the first place. But if you consider that we all live in communities trying to survive and trying to thrive, then males may have been the better leaders during times in history when infant mortality and maternal mortality, all these rates were high, and you needed large and strong people to defend your community from dangerous animals or warring clans. But the world has changed. Our physical and social environments are becoming more complex and unpredictable. As I was saying, all right, thank you. So we are living in unprecedented times. So again, the world is becoming more complex, more unpredictable. Population, technology, medicine, access to information, as well as misinformation and disinformation, flying drones on Mars, acknowledging the harmful effects of colonialization, releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, struggling with racial injustices, and a novel virus. Our human collective is experiencing more complex problems on this tiny blue marble of a planet, and our trajectory is pointing to more challenges ahead. So we need wise leaders. We need wise leaders who can help navigate both the local and global challenges. And engineers have designed and built solutions to massive problems, such as we are witnessing with the emergence of energy efficiency and carbon capture and renewable energy sources. And women engineers in particular have designed and built solutions to amazing problems while enduring negative stigmas, loneliness in the field, and sexual innuendos. We need wise leaders who can withstand tremendous social anxiety to tell people the news they may not want to hear, such as continuing with COVID precautions, even though that may be a highly unpopular position to take right now. We need wise leaders who can have difficult conversations with family members who may not understand climate change. And we need wise leaders who will stand up to inequality in the face of violence. We need wise leaders who will go out of their way to teach younger generations how to face their fears, because the challenges that are upon us now are multi-generational. We need wise leaders with diverse perspectives and experiences, because complex problems are never solved with a silver bullet or a monolithic solution. And if we need wise leaders with all these capabilities, I can't think of better suited leaders than women engineers. We owe our lives to wise mothers, wise engineers. And even though I spoke negatively about the patriarchal socialization that occurs from birth, women do have the advantage of receiving more skills in nurturing and protecting others. And when you consider that protecting others is something that women are really good at, I can't think of a better profession to do that than engineering, because engineers must carry that heightened consciousness to protect the public and the environment. And so if women in engineering is so valuable, considering the current challenges that humanity is facing, it perplexes me how slow humans are at adopting the behaviors that are better suited to our current situation. Behaviors like judging genders equally and giving women the same opportunity to be judged as courageous as men get. So, in closing, one more slide to share. Another show I loved as a kid. It is like we're trying to run 21st century software on hardware that was built for the rise of early civilizations. Women have been honing these specialized skills to play in this gender game because we know that the current challenges require us to be at the table. And at the same time that we're playing this game that is painful and dangerous, we are also trying to dismantle the game. And changing this is not something, again, that is going to happen overnight. So I just want to close with saying our culture isn't all bad. Culture makes it efficient for humans to pass down learnings from one generation to the next, but culture carries a lot of inertia and it makes us slow to change. And reconstructing our own culture is so imperative because we are facing unprecedented challenges in human history. So if viruses had feelings and climate change was a human-like evil character, they would probably be delighted right now in how our culture makes us so slow to deal with these evils. So anyways, I strongly believe that with all you here today, folks like, I want to give a shout out to Sydney Shadden. I know your mom, great to see you here. But I just want to say, just you being here means that there's a level of caring that you have for humanity and for the challenges ahead. So I want to thank you for being here, and I hope that you're inspired, and I hope that you can go practice your poly courage. Thank you. I don't know, I'll look to the moderator to advise if we have time for questions.
We have just under 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Laura, for your great presentation. We all really enjoyed. We can tell from the chat column here. So we still have 3 and 40 seconds. And anybody have questions for Laura, and unmute yourself and speak up, or type your question in the chatting box.
Pretty sure one of my courage labels is stuck in my hair. Yep. All good. Oh, you guys made it easy for me. Thank you. I was so worried I had the 2 o'clock spot. I'm like, oh no, I've got to make this lively because people are going to be tired right now.
May I have a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you talked about being courage or vice versa, that cowardness, but it depends on the which environment you are working. Some companies, they are encouraging you to be yourself as a woman, but some of them may not. So because I worked in both of them, I can say the differences, but sometimes it's a dangerous game. If you are courage in a different environment, it is not acceptable.
That is true. You've pinpointed like the challenge of the game. It has rules, and we often walk into it blindly, not knowing what those rules are. And often we bump into the rules head first, or we trip over them before we figure out what they are. And we spend, again, so much time watching how others around us behave so that we can try to pick up what those rules might be. It is really helpful if there are other women around you so you can watch how they've, often they're the ones who can kind of tell you where the rules are and what they are.
If they are.
If they are too.
You are alone.
Yeah, sometimes you're alone and that makes it extra hard. And that's where it really is up to you to find out those rules, but also to push those rules too. It's frustrating when they're there, and it's important to question them and push them where you can. But yeah, it is dangerous. Sometimes you feel like your job is on the line, or you're alone and there's no one to lean on and to talk to. It is tough. Yeah.
And we have a question here. How does adapting to new norms for women affect the diversity equation?
I don't think I quite caught all of that question. Is that in the chat?
Yeah, that is in the chat.
Oh, there it is. How does adapting to new norms for women affect the diversity equation? Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that one because everyone has to adapt to new norms. Like it's not just women adapting to norms. It's men. It's everyone that has to adapt to the norms. Right now we have things like diversity targets, and we encourage diversity. But when you have new norms, I think diversity doesn't really become a target anymore. It just becomes natural. It becomes comfortable. It becomes the norm, and that's the norm we need. But adapting versus the diversity equation, I think it eventually, as we adapt, it's not really a target or an equation anymore. It's just the new norm. I hope I've answered that okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Another question is, how do you change the rules of the game without losing the game?
You don't always win the game. That's the problem. Yeah, I love playing games, and I've learned to lose a lot of them too. But sometimes you do win, and sometimes you lose, and that's the disappointing part. But what's important is that you take some learnings from everything that you win and everything you lose, and you share it with others who are there too. I see the faces of people on the screen who I've worked with. Martha has been a great mentor to me and who's helped guide me in not only knowing some of the rules in the workplace we're in, but also pushing some of those rules. So, we have a